missed it, we can get that all
This
set.
meeting is being recorded.
Sorry about that. So with that in mind, we'll talk about a lot of things tonight, and please consider, most importantly, more than anything else, we certainly all want to win. We certainly all want the kids to get better, but more important than that is putting Christ on display through our leadership to the officials, to the other parents of other schools, the other coaches, no matter what they're like, to our fellow coaches, that we just put Christ on display in a way that makes him appealing, so that we can do in our small circle of influence our part to increase God's kingdom, not make it seem less appealing to others. So club versus middle school, one thing that we have in this season, it's really more about, it's really a lot more about our little leagues starting up kind of at the end of April, right before the end of our season. So I think those leagues are starting a little bit earlier this year than normal. So kind of around April 20-ish. Usually they're a little bit later than that, but we're going to have about 2.5 weeks of overlap where we're going to run into practices conflicting, and some arms are being needed at Southern or at Northeastern Little League or wherever. And so we're going to have some conflicts there. Please don't create ultimatum situations. If you don't do this with us, then there's going to be this penalty. The goal for us is that this is middle school. We want kids to participate in things. We don't want to wear them out. We want to partner with parents, partner with schedules, but the goal is obviously always to split the conflicts. If there's going to be 4 conflicts with Southern Little League or Northeast Little League or whatever it may be, or somebody's club soccer team, try to get 2 of those for us and 2 for the other. Try to work with the parents to see if we can help each other out in those ways, and ask for that communication. That's the best thing to do. This is, again, middle school. We want opportunities. So please work with parents. We want them to be equal partners with us, and we want to partner with parents as best as we can. So that's club and middle school. Any questions about that? I know some of you also coach like Southern Little League or Northeast Little League, like that as well. Does anybody have a question about how those 2 might interfere or interact, or any clarifications on that as you? Okay. Couple of keys to successful middle school coaching. Please read through this. We'll go through this more for new, but like I said, spiritual leader, modeling Christ, putting him on display is huge. Take time to do that you're communicating with kids and parents about what's happening. Take time out of your practices. Have kids show up 10 minutes early or stay 10 minutes late, or take time out. Show them that it's important enough for us to talk about this and apply this to our lives, that we even take practice time to do this. There's no better, more impressionable time for students than in middle school, when they're really trying to figure it all out, to show them what's really the most important thing that we care about through the classroom of athletics. So please consider that and make sure that you have a plan for it for your team. Talk to your other coach about it if you can. One great thing to do is to have parents share stories or things that they're excited about in their faith. This is something we started at the high school as well, where we bring our parents in who obviously love the Lord a lot, enough to send their kids to our school and have them be part of it. So when they're allowed to be invited into the team situation to share a little bit about what's on their heart or what they're learning, that's a great way to help partner with parents and show kids more adult and mature versions of what Christianity can look like from different people. So please consider that. One of the things I highlight here is worry about our kids and our families. If you've been a part of our league at all, you've seen some weird stuff from Graciac families, parents, coaches. We try to be the opposite of some of that weirdness. It's really important that we don't try to point out what's wrong with them, and we mostly just try to make sure that we're doing the things that we're supposed to do. And we're honoring sportsmanship, and we're honoring the way that we communicate with other people, and we're doing a good job of putting Christ on display and making sure that we're taking care of our kids and our families and worrying less about what other teams are doing. You're going to run into some weirdness. I just guarantee it. Don't get caught in that trap. Okay. Just remember. Officials, same thing, whether it's soccer, baseball, softball, it's probably going to be true that you won't agree with everything the officials do. I do not pay you to argue with officials. I pay you and talk to you and partner with you so that you can coach our kids and lead our kids spiritually. So that is the number one thing. It is not in your job description in any way as a middle school coach for you to be arguing and giving officials a hard time. If you have a question for an official, that's certainly something that's appropriate. In baseball, softball, between innings, you can call timeout and ask a question. Be respectful, be kind, do it in a way that doesn't embarrass anyone, and don't allow frustration into that situation. So please be professional about it. But again, it's a chance for us to put Christ on display. Remember that we wear a C, and everybody's wondering how we're going to handle all of those situations. And most importantly, don't forget to have fun. If you don't have fun, your kids will not have fun. That's pretty much guaranteed. So make sure you're enjoying yourself, you're smiling. One of the things that I constantly have to, because I'm kind of an intense person when it comes to athletics, is I have to watch my facial expressions. I really have to pay attention to what is my face saying when I'm talking to students or when I'm talking to officials or when I'm talking, because I'm a very intense person by nature. I don't know about you, but it's really important for me to make sure that I'm watching my facial expressions when I'm communicating with people. Because I might be having fun inside, but it may not look that way. And so I have to make sure I'm making those two things connect for the benefit of those that I lead. Questions so far from anyone? Okay. Professionalism, social media. If you are a social media person, please privatize your accounts. We don't want to connect with any of the students through social media, through cell phones. Any connection you need to communicate with a student should go through email or through a parent phone conversation. Please don't do that through social media. You can also communicate with parents through TeamSnap eventually when I get you signed up for that. But until we have Team Set, you won't have a TeamSnap account. And then also one thing about professionalism is a lot of people feel like when they lead, they need to be connected to the kids by letting them call them Brendan or letting them call them Randy. It's important to me that we don't blur the lines between coach and student. It's important to me that we use Coach Brendan or Coach Randy, but there's got to be that designation of coach. I don't like to blend the lines at all. And that's something that I think we can do. It's just a little pet peeve of mine. I don't micromanage a lot of things, but that's one of the things that's important to me is we don't have our kids going around calling us by our first names. We want to have that level of respect. So please make sure you do that. And make sure that you privatize accounts and communicate only with parents through email and cell phone. Any questions about social media? If you want to do a team social media Instagram account or something, you can put team things on there. Please no direct messages. Please, if you want to share photos on there, that's all good and fine. But please no personal communications through there. Don't call anyone out. Remember that your social media account also represents us as a school and our Lord as our Lord and Savior. Number 3, substitute coaching. There will likely be times where you cannot make it for some reason or another. Please work within your coaching grade levels and assistant coaches to try to get things covered. Number 1, if you're going to miss something, let me know as soon as you can, because I don't like to be surprised by that stuff. Number 2, if you just say, hey, I'm not going to be there on this day, but this coach is going to be taking my spot on that day. Matt's going to say, hey, I can't be there on a Saturday, but Andrew's going to take it for me. We're all good. Don't want you to worry, but I want you to know I'm not going to be there. If for some reason we can't get it covered, then I want you to let me know because I need to then work with you and our roster to see if there's a parent or someone else or a different grade level coach that could maybe help us out that day. But there's also paperwork that has to go along with all of those things. So just let me know what the plan is and what's going on with substitute coaching if it needs to happen. It does happen. It's not the end of the world. Just talk to me about it and communicate with me to let me know what's going on, and then we'll try to find a solution for you. Any questions so far on substitute coaching, social media, or any of this stuff so far? Okay. Zoom parent meeting. I do require that each of our head coaches leads a Zoom parent meeting. Or if you would like to do it in person at the end of one of your practices, because a lot of parents come to pick up anyway, you're certainly welcome to do that. But the reason that we have that is so that you are not just an email to people. We have a lot of kids that participate in our program. And so it's important that they have a connection. Like I said, we like to partner with parents. We like to develop a relationship that says our coaches work together with parents. And so it's important that we do a Zoom or a parent meeting once your team has been established that second or third week of the year, where we do a Zoom parent meeting or an in-person meeting to communicate with parents about a variety of things. So one of the sheets that I gave you is this sheet called Parent Meeting Hints. And so this is what I need you to go through in your parent meeting. But this is also a chance for you to personally connect with people, answer questions, tell a little bit about your style. So for example, what you see here is you must hit the italicized points. So these ones in here, some of these you can just say, hey, these are from Kevin. Fan behavior, this is from Kevin. Communication with officials, this is from Kevin. Here's things I have to tell you. The other things I'm just telling you, like you should communicate those because otherwise parents are going to wonder about that and ask you questions about it. So as you can see here, this is not like a read word for word about your child, but these are things for you to consider when you talk to your parents in person about how do I want you to communicate with me as the coach. And so please consider all of these things and think about what you want to do in this category of communication with parents and coaches. Okay, faith formation, transportation, this is something you'll want to cover. Philosophy of playing time. One of the things that's important here about transportation is if you have a late practice, kids cannot stay at school. That's something I really need you to communicate as well. But again, these are tips for how to have a meeting. What I'm trying to do is give you the things to hit so that parents feel like they've got all the info. After 8 years and almost 30 some seasons worth of sports, these are the things that I know your parents need to know and they're used to hearing. So please use this sheet to guide how you run that meeting and communicate when that meeting will be. Any questions about the requirement for you to hold some kind of Zoom or in-person parent meeting in week 2 or 3? Okay, use that sheet the best that you can so that you know what's going on. Playing time. I do also provide you, and I think I sent this to each of you today, but your sports kind of guidelines for playing time. And so you can browse through that. Again, it is a coach's choice. The key that I need you to know is that we don't do equal playing time. That's not recommended by the league. It's not recommended by me. It's not recommended by our school policy. What is important is that we do honor people who are on time, at everything, work hard, and do their best. And so if we can help those people do a little better than the minimums, that's always great. In 5th and 6th grade, we try to be a little closer to equal than we would in 7th and 8th. Obviously, it's kind of like a stepping stone, right? 5, 6, baseball, softball, soccer. It's a little more participatory in nature. As we get to 7th and 8th, we're getting a little bit more competitive. People are a little more serious. We start to run it a little more like a strategic, try to win the game team while also honoring and trying to beat those minimums. Because then in high school, it becomes something totally different. So we use the middle school as a way to step up from pure play to then 5, 6 to then 7, 8 to where we hit the high school level. So please browse your sport and make sure you communicate that to parents in your Zoom meeting about how you're going to view playing time and what your goal is for the students. Okay. If you can do that up front and have some of those conversations up front, you're going to save yourself a ton of time down the road, and communicating expectations clear is really important for parents. Those of you who are parents know that. That's the end of our page 1 here. Any questions for anybody? We're right on schedule. I've got about 8 minutes left before I release our veteran coaches. We're good so far? Okay. Team formation. So this is always a little goofy in the spring. Baseball, softball, soccer, we try to be outside as much as we can. I have no idea what the fields are going to look like in the next 2.5 weeks. No matter what it looks like next week, if it's perfectly green out there, we could get another snowstorm. We just have no idea. You all know what it's like in the spring. So I do have practice positions for you inside. The goal that you should try to have is to try to do in that first week or two, try to get everybody in and see them once or twice, every kid at least twice before you make teams. Again, there's really no rush. There's no games before spring break for us. So we have this 2.5 week period where we can really take as much time as we need to build our teams. Once you have your teams, then we can kind of start splitting up the practices a little bit differently. But one thing that's been really successful for baseball is because they have so many kids, is to bring in like 5th graders on one day, 6th graders on one day, pitchers and catchers on one day. So they see everybody isolated in smaller groups. And although not everybody plays all 3 days, you'll get a chance to see kids usually a couple of times. You can bring in infielders one day, but just think about it as breaking up smaller groups so you can get a better look to make equal teams. You want to split the arms, split the catchers, try to split the hitting as best you can to give yourself the best chance to have a successful season fulfilling your positions and that sort of thing. For soccer, kind of the same thing. You do have indoor. And on any day that you can just kind of hop outside and throw fly balls out in the field outside, you're welcome to do that. If it's not nice enough to go to the field, but you can get out on the, have kids bring shoes and do that. But please use that well. So speaking of the practice schedule, one of the things that I would really like for you, hold on, what's going on? There we go. Is I want to go through the schedule and look at this. It's a little confusing early on. And so take a look at this with me. For like the first week here. So on this schedule, and I shared this with you, some of you maybe have viewed this and been like, what the heck is going on? Well, we have a couple of campuses. So here we have the Evergreen campus, which is where we play baseball, where we play soccer. Okay. And so what I try to do is schedule you at the big field for 7th and 8th, the small field. These are after school times for 5, 6. Soccer, is kind of in the middle of all that. If all three are being used at the same time, 2 baseballs and a soccer, we gotta manipulate soccer a little bit to go the short way or do different drills, but we can make it all work. We don't really use Iroquois at all during the spring season, so that won't be a factor. But then down here at GRCMS, what we try to do is give you an indoor time in our main gym here. We do have a batting cage. We have turf to hit off of. We have, screens to be able to pitch from, and tees in here. We have all indoor balls that you'll use when you play inside. We have indoor baseballs and softballs. So I try to give you some times in here. And what you can see here, baseball, is that you've got the big field at 3:15 outside, or you've got the indoor gym at the same time. So I try to line those up so that you can decide. It's nice enough to go out today. So we're going to take everybody out there. So then you'll just communicate with parents about, hey, bring indoor shoes, but also bring your cleats, or bring a sweatshirt, right? Just in case we go outside or whatever it may be. But I try to line those up as best as I can for you. And so here you can see that, the 5 to 6:30 time on Tuesday for baseball is also the 5 to 7 time at Evergreen outside. So again, trying to line those up as best as I can for you. Soccer, you can see we've got, outdoor times after school each day for 5, 6, 7, 8. Your times for soccer are right after school, but they're at Evergreen. And so this may take a little bit, but the main thing about this is all of your practices will be set in here for the whole season. Okay, so April, I'll put all your games in here when we get games, and then we'll set the practices around it. Your main job is to take the information off of the grid and put it onto TeamSnap, okay? So that your parents know when your stuff is. So does anybody have, this is a time where you can unmute and let me know, does anybody have a day where it's like, I cannot under any circumstance practice on Wednesdays from 5 to 6:30 or something like that? Does anyone have a day where they know ahead of time it's just not possible at all?
Hey, Kevin, Wednesdays are church nights.
Yeah, so your team wouldn't be able to practice that night?
Yeah, from 6:30 on, maybe 6 on.
And that's for both you and Andrew, right? You guys are both doing Wednesday nights?
Yeah, that wraps up April 25. So after that, Wednesdays will be free again.
Okay, if I make a mistake with that, just please get back to me. I wrote a note to adjust that going forward. And we'll see what we can do. Because I see right here on the 22nd, I know guys don't meet every single week, Matt. So take a look through this and see if there is a conflict, and we'll see if we can trade out something if we need to. Okay, and just send me an email
we'll
on
do
that in the early weeks here. Okay.
Yeah, and if it
I'll
is 5
adjust
to
that
6,
when we get back from spring break.
if we do 5 to 6:30, Matt could always head off to church and I can finish practice if needed, I guess.
Okay. Well, and you'll have, Steve will be there too, likely for these first couple indoor times too. So we should be able to hopefully cover that any time if we need to, for this 1 or 2 weeks, hopefully. So yeah, thanks a lot for being flexible on that. And then after spring break, we'll make sure we don't get you guys on Wednesdays until after April 25. Okay. Anybody else would like it's a no, it's just not going to happen on a certain day?
I don't know if I see anything on here, Kevin, for 5th, 6th softball, and I know we might not even have a team, but
Right.
3:15 to 5 is a hard time for me to make any time because I work until 5 every day. I'll get out early for 5 o'clock practices, but I don't know that I could pull off 3:15.
Okay, good to know. For outdoor stuff at Gainey, we're typically going to be 5:30 starts anyway, so that'll work out really well for you. Whether that's helping with 6, 7, 8 or a 5, 6 team, that'll be later. These first couple weeks, we'll see what we can do to get you a little bit later then.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep, thanks. Okay. That being said, we talk about Team Snap. As you can see here, practice schedules. 5th and 6th, we're trying to meet 3 days a week. 7th and 8th, we're trying to meet 4 days a week whenever possible. That includes games. So if we have 2 games, we'd have 2 practices if we can. And so again, I'll put that stuff on the grid. I'll kind of prompt you and remind you to put that on Team Snap. And if there's changes, I try to remind you right away or talk to you about it right away. But always it's good to double check that grid each week before you send your stuff out. When it comes to Team Snap, this is something I'm going to go through with our new coaches after this, but it's a great tool. We can email through there. We have schedules on there. It sends reminders to people. It can be a little bit overbearing with the amount of reminders, but at the same time, that's better than no reminders or people forgetting things. So we'll work through Team Snap. And so new coaches, I'll show you that too. Game schedules, we don't have these yet. Whether it's working with another league or our league, we don't have them yet. We're a little early for that. As soon as I get them, we'll get those posted into your Team Snap accounts, and we'll be good to go with that. And we'll try to plan practice around those. Cancellations, this does happen quite a bit. I try to make the call as best I can by 2 o'clock, which means like if the fields are flooded baseball, I'll let you know as soon as possible. I'll ask you to go to Team Snap, communicate the cancellation to your team as soon as possible. Vanderkamp will help you guys with softball based on Gainey, Randy and Carrie. So you guys can work with Dick if you have questions. And then what we try to do is I try to send an announcement to the school, like over the loudspeaker to help. And then you guys would communicate to parents about it through Team Snap. So between those 2 avenues, we do pretty well as long as I try to make those calls by 2 o'clock as best I can. I don't often cancel on forecasts, but we will get out there and see. And if the fields are messed up, we're just not gonna be able to do it. But if it's just a forecast, we're gonna try to play it out and try to get it in. We don't want to pre-cancel stuff because as soon as you cancel something on a forecast, it gets sunny. So we don't do that. All right, it's just the way it goes. It's like a rule of athletic directors that's what happens. So score reporting on Team Snap, if you scroll down on the main page of your phone, you'll be able to click like an edit score situation, and you'll be able to put your score in. If it doesn't work for some reason, just send it to me and I'll take care of it for you. That's all you have to do is just send me a text of your score if you can't get it to work, and I'll take care of it. Uniforms and equipment. Equipment is indoor stuff is here at the middle school for all of you in that storage room. In this little flipper above my desk, there is a key that gets you in there. So you and your coaches can come up and access that key. Just make sure you put it back for the next group. Try to keep that equipment room as clean as possible. A lot of people are accessing that between baseball, softball, and soccer. Soccer, your bags, those are all ready to go in that storage room. They're pre-packed with balls, with jerseys, with cones, all that stuff. You're ready to go. And then there's also stuff at your location. So Randy and Carrie, your stuff is at Gainey already. Your outdoor stuff. Baseball, your outdoor stuff is at Evergreen. So I have to get you a key. So one of the things that we'll do the first week is I'll make sure that you get a key to go into the shed out there. And then Brendan, you and I will talk a little bit more often about field prep, painting. Brendan, you've got some skills now, I believe, painting out there. So you'll be helping me a little bit with that. And then I'll also give you guys a key so you can access that. Last couple things, picking kids up, make sure you stay until parents get there. Initial communication. We are early right now, so we are not in a rush to have that done, but I would love for Lindy to communicate to 7-8 soccer, Lizzie to communicate with 5-6 soccer, Dan to communicate with the 7-8 baseballers instead of Brendan, just because Dan's done it before. Steve, you do it for 5-6 baseball, it'd be awesome. Randy for 7-8 softball, and Carrie, we'll talk about what we're going to do with that roster once we know what's happening with the league. And if we can do that by Saturday, March 4, that gives us, time to communicate with parents, gives them a whole week to plan, to get ahead of things and be thinking. If we don't do it by the 4th, parents get a little antsy. They start to email me a bunch and like, hey, what's going on? Do we have any info? So, about a week before is a good time to do that. So that person that I just said, if it's possible, if you can send that out by March 4, that would be great. With just basic information, you can kind of see, explain who the coaches are, what's going to happen the first week, how you're going to do team formation, basic stuff you as a parent would want to know. That's what we got to send out in that first one. When it comes to working with me, if you have something urgent, call me right away. If you text me about something, I'll try to answer that as soon as I can. If it's something I can work on, put it in my email. That's like my to-do list. So please send me something in an email. That way I can work on it. So yeah, that's kind of it. Veteran coaches, any questions from you? I got you a couple minutes late, but we were right on about 30 minutes because we started at 6:05. Anything from you guys? Steve, anything I missed? You've been through a lot of these. Did I miss anything? Good to go? Okay. Randy, Carrie, Andrew, Matt, Brendan, I'd love for you guys to stay on and we'll kind of go through a couple other things a little bit more in depth. Thanks a lot, Steve, and Dan. Dan, if you want to stay, you can, but I know you did it last year as well, so. Okay, Jimmy, you're good to go, unless you got any questions. All right, Steve, you're good to go. So Brendan, Carrie, Randy, Andrew, Matt. Anything that was kind of fast because some of it's review for those people. Anything that you want to go back to right now, just unmute and just say I'm good, or unmute and say, yeah, can we talk about this a minute?
Kevin?
Yes,
This is
Randy.
Randy. I have a question on transportation. Since we're gaining, and like at 5 o'clock, how do the kids get there and stuff? I know you had things set up already for buses for Evergreen, and so forth. I mean, how do kids get there then?
Yeah, so anytime that we have a practice that's not after school, kids go home and parents bring them back. It's the only option that we have. We don't have any busing. So it actually works out pretty well to have later practices. 5-6, we really try to do a later practice with 5-6 if we can, simply because it's hard to get them over to Evergreen for that 7th and 8th grade. So Brendan and Dan, you guys actually split up, and the first day that you guys go outside, one of you walks with them to show them the route from school, after school, to the field and how that works. And we kind of teach them. Now, a lot of these kids have done it before. They've done it in soccer. They've done it, but it's something we have to teach them to do. When it's a 5 o'clock start, it's really easy. So like Matt and Andrew, most of your stuff's going to be 5 o'clock. Probably, I would guess you guys can't get out of work all the time. Matt, Andrew, is that correct? You can't get out of work for 3 o'clock on a regular basis?
Yeah, not on a regular basis.
Yeah. Same for you, Andrew?
Yeah, I can be a little more flexible, but yeah, later is always fine.
Yeah, if we can do 5 o'clock or 6:30 starts for those practices, it's always better, because just having the young kids walk that 3/4 mile to Evergreen, we've had issues with them, even when we have people like really walking with them. And so even when they go with like the 7th and 8th graders, they do weird things in a busy area, and we just try to keep them a little bit later because of that. But 7, 8 usually do pretty well, Brennan. So you guys will just work on teaching them how to get there. Randy and Carrie, your stuff's gonna be after school at Gainey, or not after school at Gainey, it'll be later. So that'll be a parent transport.
Do you supply supper afterwards or?
That's a no. Yeah, that's a no.
No, okay.
Sorry. Matt, anything from you so far?
Just a clarification on student transport. Is it frowned upon to carpool with the coach? We've kind of gotten into that mode with all the baseball kids, but if it's frowned upon, I can explain that.
Nope. That's a great question. It's frowned upon for Brendan to take kids because Brendan isn't a parent in our community, right? You as a parent, you can wear your parent hat and carpool people. We can't tell you to not be a parent. If you were a parent, you could drive people, you can still do that. So you and Andrew can help transport people to things like that. That's totally fine. Randy, you can do the same with a grandkid. Carrie, as a parent, you can help with that stuff. Dina can help. But like Brendan, since he's not a parent of someone, we try to have people in Brendan's situation not drive people at all. Does that make sense, Matt?
That certainly does. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. That is a big difference, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. Andrew, anything from you so far?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Couple things.
Hey,
Just to go
hey,
back-
Kevin, I had a question real quick.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I know that we're splitting up the 7th and 8th graders. What's practice venues? Do we practice together often, or how is it split up? Like whose practices where?
In the beginning, when we're inside, you guys are gonna have to kind of work together, you and Dan. So you'll talk on the phone, or maybe you'll grab coffee before it all starts or something like that, and talk about how are we gonna manage these 32 kids inside. You're not gonna have them all in there at the same time. You're gonna
Right.
split them up those first 2.5 weeks with different groups coming in on different days. And even then, you might split up the teams and still split them on given days through spring break. Like that just may be what happens.
Mhm.
Once you get going outside, if you can always do 3:00, and maybe Dan can't, maybe Dan needs to do 5. So we can stack it then. Your team can go
Okay.
early, his team can go late. Or maybe there's like Wednesdays, he can go early. So maybe we'll give him early, and on Wednesdays you go late or something like that. But we'll try to stack it. We wouldn't try to put you all at the same time unless you wanted to do a scrimmage of some kind where you wanted to actually do some things together. But
Okay.
you can certainly do that. We have never had that issue because Jim Voss has always coached all of the 7th and 8th grade teams. So he's always had certain teams at the field on certain times, and he just manages that whole thing. So with you guys, we'll just have to work those schedules a little bit more purposefully. Good question.
Sounds good.
Okay. So a couple things as we look back on here. I have to mention this, even in middle school, like hazing is very broad. We think a lot of times we don't have to talk to kids about this, but it's amazing what we find out through like weird 3rd, 4th channel stuff about like initiation or like acceptance things that kids have done. So just be purposeful about like everyone belongs. There's no initiations or anything like that. Like, I don't think it's as big a deal in 5, 6, but 7, 8, we start to get a little squirrely. People are a little goofy. They hear stories about certain things, and we just want to make sure that we're communicating with our kids. Everyone belongs. There's no initiations or anything like that, and that sort of thing is not something that we do in our school. And I know it seems like something that maybe we shouldn't even talk about and put an idea in somebody's head, but at the same time, it's an important thing to make sure they know where we stand on that, so they don't come up with those ideas on their own. So that is something that I always want to make sure we mention and make sure we're trying to keep in front of us. Communicate, be a trust builder. Every time that we communicate with our parents, we have an opportunity to build trust. If any of you have had a kid on a team with a coach that didn't build trust right away, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's really important to be upfront, to answer the question why before people can ask it, because every chance that we email with someone is a chance to build trust, which is why a lot of times we do a weekly email. Okay, every week we have to email everybody on your team. It's a requirement that you email everybody with an update. Here's how we email. Okay, if you do this, you have a better chance to be successful. So there's a little information here about why, but the basic structure is summarize and preview. Let people know what happened last week, how you thought about it, what you thought, so that they don't have to guess how you think, right? Let them know what you're thinking about it. We have some coaches who do a really good job of this. And we need the parents to know that we're trying to be partners with them, to show them that we're knowing what's going on our team. And although that something might not have gone well, that we know it didn't go well. It's important to communicate that we're going to work on certain things. So be open in that. Let them know what was good, what you're going to work on. Preview of the week coming up, meaning here's what we have coming up. Practice this day, and this day. I know we have team snap, but we also want to be really clear in connecting the dots between what we're telling them in this email and exactly what's happening on team snap. So make sure that you're communicating that. Sometimes your parents will even catch an error that you make, which is awesome. It builds that opportunity to connect with our parents and partner with them. Third paragraph, any details. Hey, we got the game. We want to show up early to the game. Make sure you wear long sleeves. Make sure you have your hat. Any of those little details, keep that there. And just look through this because parents are used to a lot of this sort of email structure happening for their teams. And so they're going to be expecting to see, a structure like this in their email. We want to build that culture within our program. So that weekly parent communication piece is a big deal. Make sure you play the kid. Any questions about parent communication, by the way? Okay.
I do have one quick question, Kevin. Sorry. For the equipment that kids need to have, like face masks, which I don't think parents naturally think of if it's their kid's first time playing. Is there like a list of what's required somewhere that we can communicate to them?
No.
Okay.
Simple answer, no. I don't have a list of that for every sport or anything like that.
Okay.
What we do provide is like a jersey that every kid can wear. They have to buy their own pants or go to Play It Again Sports or whatever for their own pants. You'll say like, hey, black socks. Those are a personal item. People have to buy their own black socks or whatever socks. If you wanted to wear a certain color undershirt or sweatshirt, hey, we're going to try to wear gray undershirts or whatever. Just make sure you communicate that. Again, that's personal item. So they have to provide that. What we provide is the jersey. We provide helmets. We provide some level of bats. So there is basic stuff, balls. We provide catcher gear. People have their own catcher gear. That's fine. But we do provide a basic level of, we can play the game with the stuff that we have. And then we ask parents to do a little bit of that personal item stuff. That's
Okay.
extra.
Makes sense. Thanks.
And so for you guys, just make the list that you want them to know about. Keep it cheap if you can. Encourage Play It Again Sports and other secondhand stores for that kind of stuff.
It did say in the rules in Graciac, no white or gray undershirts. Are they strict on that?
I would guess it varies because the officials we get, some are longtime Graciac officials, Andrew, some are random that day and they don't know the rule. So that's a good thing that you pick that up. Make sure to communicate that to parents that we're going to try to do black undershirts or whatever, whatever your team is. So that's a good pickup there. Thank you. Skill development. I'm just huge on this. I actually think our practices are better than games when it comes to our middle school sports because of the amount of reps we can get. That's why I love for baseball coaches to have an assistant, softball coaches to have an assistant to break into small groups and get tons of reps. There's nothing that makes me cringe more as an encouragement to each of you than watching situational baseball happen for an hour and 15 minutes of a practice. It happens a lot. I just want to encourage you not to do that. Get a ton of reps, break kids into small groups, have groups doing things in the outfield while other groups are doing things in the infield, and get them rotating, get them moving, getting them doing a lot of reps whenever possible. play the kids, make sure we beat the minimums. There's nothing, I cannot defend you if we're not playing the kids according to the rules. I can defend it if it's not equal. That's okay, because that's part of what we do, but I can't defend it if we're not hitting the rules. So make sure that you're playing kids appropriately, and if we can beat those minimums, let's beat them. That's kind of it for what we didn't cover on this page. Any questions from anybody? One of the things I would like to show you is TeamSnap. A lot of you have experienced TeamSnap as a parent, but I would like to show you kind of what it looks like from the coach side, and kind of how to enter in your schedule. A lot of you have just seen kind of the schedule side of things from a parent view, and so I just want to show you that real quick so that you know how to do it. I'll also send you a sheet that tells you how to upload your roster into TeamSnap so that it takes you about 2 seconds instead of like manually entering everyone. So once we get to a point where you have a team, then I'll send you that sheet to make it easy for you to get in there and upload your team. But let me just show you real quick here if this will ever load. Any questions while this is loading?
Hey, Kevin, are the weekly parent emails, do they have to come through TeamSnap?
They do not. You'll notice that it's a pretty nice system for doing it if you use TeamSnap, because like it will have all of the contacts in TeamSnap, and it'll just say like you just like select all, and it will send it to every single person. That way you get everybody they wanted to get information. It will go to them. It's easy to click me on there as it goes to me, so you don't have to remember to put me on there each time. So I would encourage you to try to, do it through TeamSnap, but it's not required. As long as you're sending an email and updating TeamSnap with your practices, that's all that matters to me. But I'd encourage you to try to do it through, can you guys see this TeamSnap page now? To try to do it through here. So the way you do that is like to go to messages, and I'm not going to send one. This is our basketball team, but I'll just show you kind of what it looks like so you can see what I mean, Matt. Maybe. So it's easy to just do like a new email, and then you type in your body, and then you just do select all, and that goes to every person that's under each of those people's names that they've put in. So if they have 2 parents or a grandparent in there or whatever, it goes, you just click select all, and it goes to them. And then all the non-playing people, you can send it to the coaches so they get that. You can attach files to it. So it's a pretty slick way. And then it also will, have a history of all the emails that you sent so that you can look back and make sure you can do it. So that's kind of how that works. When it comes to the schedule, the way that you add things is to just click like add an event. So you'll see here, the coach has Lizzie Voss, who's our soccer coach in the spring, but she's added all these practices. So what you do is you just click add, you do a practice, and you name it. So you probably will name it practice, put the date of that practice, when does it start, and then the location. So if you're at GRCMS, you can select, Grand Rapids Christian Gym. You can also select Grand Rapids Christian Baseball, or like you can select Rosewood, because that's also the list of our baseball. So you select the location, and it has an address in there for parents. And then the way that you do like how long it is you just do the duration. So your start time might be 5 o'clock, and your duration might be 1 hour and 30 minutes. And so then when you can notify your team or just save it and create another. But that's how you'll enter in your schedules through here. The roster is something that you just will upload. It'll ask you, when this is blank, it'll ask you, do you want to upload something? And then I have instructions for how to do that. So that's a little bit of a review on Team Snap, but that's kind of the basics of stuff I wanted to cover with all of you tonight. Before we go, I know it's about 5 minutes to 7, and I said I'd have you out at 7, so I want to make sure I honor that. Anything that I didn't cover that you're wondering about? I will encourage each.
I had a question, Kevin, on the topic of polling.
Oh, go ahead.
So, I had a question on playing time. I was just reading that before the meeting, the document so that if your team is really large, is recommended to have 12 to 13 players show up, and as opposed of having 16 or 17 show up, and having minimal playing time. So if it stands and the baseball rosters stay rather big and we do have around 16, what does that conversation look like? Or, I guess how does the process look like? Do you have, split groups into 4 and then these 4 aren't coming to this game, then these 4 aren't coming to the next game?
It's a good question. I don't think anyone else in here will have that specific situation. So hold on to that, and you and I can talk for a couple minutes right after this.
Sure.
I will encourage each of you to come by either the week of the 6th at some point to check out the indoor facility, what sorts of things that you have available to you to run indoor events, to see some of the indoor equipment that you have, what the space looks like, to get familiar with it. If you show up on day 1, it's always going to be a little bit of a weirdness of trying to figure everything out. So anytime between now and the 10th of March, that Friday, that you want to come in, I would just let me know, and I'll meet you here and I'll show you around and let you know what you got access to, so you can kind of get it in your mind how you can work the space and work the kids, how many kids you can have going at the same time. Okay. Other than that, Matt, Andrew, Carrie, and Randy, thank you so much. If you think of anything, send me an email, and we can talk about it, or give me a call later on. Okay.
Okay,
Thanks, Kevin.
All right.
Sounds
Thanks a
good.
lot,
Thank you.
everybody. Appreciate it. Brendan, you can stay on for 1 second and I'll talk to you about that. So, Brendan, with that, like what we've done in the past is taken the roster and sent an email to like your whole roster with the game schedule on it. Here's our game.
Okay.
Email me back. Are you available for every game, or are there certain games you cannot attend? Right?
Mhm.
They might have some conflicts, right? So the first step is like, get it back. Like you have an Excel sheet with every kid's name on it. And on the top of that Excel sheet, you've got the dates of the games. And when Kevin Bruni emails you back, I can be at all games. You're going to put a X in all the boxes, right? Or you're going to, I don't know, put a 1 in all the boxes and a 0 in none of them.
Mhm.
But then Sam DeYoung is going to email back and say, I can be at all of them except May 6th. So you're going to put a 0 in the May 6th box, right? And as you do that for your whole team, you'll start to see like, oh, well, every game, I only have 14 kids coming because there's
Gotcha.
missing. Or this game, I've got all 17 can be there.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to look at what are the other things? Like, is there a kid who, is going to be missing a bunch, the other ones, but he's at this one? I want to make sure he stays in this game when there's all 17. If there's a kid
Gotcha.
who's able to make every single one, maybe we have him sit out that one. Does that make sense? Like, and you just kind of wait.
Yeah.
And the reason for parents, and you can tell them this, is like, I'm going to send that out to you as soon as I get the schedule, because my goal is for your kid to participate and have a good experience.
Mhm.
It's never a good experience for me to just be watching every second and stressing, do I have this kid in for 2 seconds or not?
Right.
So I want to make sure that I do a good job serving your son. And so at every practice, we want him there every time. We can get tons of reps. We're going to do a ton of stuff. When it comes to games, I want to make sure that when your son is there, they have an opportunity to deeply participate in the game. So if we can get 13 or 14 kids max per day, that gives us a chance to bat everybody in the order and get everybody 2 to 3 innings without a lot of stress, and even move kids
Okay.
around to different positions. And parents will
Right.
appreciate that. Even if their kid only gets 6 games, their kids playing Southern Little League, their kids playing travel, whatever, they don't care, right? They're going to get 40 more games before the end of this summer.
Right.
So if you tell them when you're there, you're going to get a good experience, like you're going to participate, they're going to
Mhm.
value that much more than going to Hudsonville to watch their kid barely get in and bat once because there's 18 kids,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So when they go, tell them it saves you too. When you go, you're going to get to watch your kid participate. You know,
Mhm.
it's not going to be a thing where they sit out because I've got 18 kids in the lineup.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah. That makes tons of sense.
Yeah, we'll approach that as soon as we get a schedule. I'll talk with you and Dan. Maybe we'll do a Zoom meeting or something, and we'll
Right.
talk about it, about how we want to do that. But
Now,
that's
I'm assuming that figure won't stay up there. I mean, just in my experience of people don't show up to tryouts or whatever. So I'm sure that's probably
it's possible.
it might not stay there.
It's possible. I would guess we're still going to have 30.
Okay.
I mean, maybe we don't have 3 of those kids show up or something, but you know, it's pretty typical that if they sign up for this, they're going to be there.
Right.
So I would guess
Cool.
we're not going to drop below 30. But if you know a kid isn't coming, we got to know that and let's mark them off because that matters
Mhm.
in formation. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and let me know if you have a parent that wants to be an assistant. I think that's a great idea. If you said you have some parents that would be willing and able, that'd be great. So
You know, the 7th grade is a huge baseball grade. Like they're very good. I don't know if they've lost any games yet in grade
Wow.
6 baseball. Maybe one between the 2 teams the last 2 years to each other or something. So they're really good. The 8th graders have some solid players too. But you can see, like from the sign up, the 7th grade is just like baseball crazy. So
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of parents
Yep.
that have coached Southern Little League and all this other stuff for a long time. So, you know, they'll probably want to be able to help out in some way if they can. So I'll look at, you know, who are some of those parents and figure which ones I would want to coach with me and recommend them. You know, I'll reach out to them and say, Brendan's looking for somebody to help. Would you be willing?
Awesome. That'd be great.
And so then again, if that means that we have a parent that can only come at 5, well, that might change how you practice.
Right.
So we'll have to look into that too. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going
Think
to
I'm
call
all
you today. I just
set.
ran out of time. So think of some things that you want to talk about based on what you heard tonight and what you know about baseball coaching. And I know Dan's going to try to get in touch with you too. He was probably messaging you during the Zoom. But make sure you talk with him too as you guys partner together. So
Sounds good.
okay.
All right.
All right. And then
Think
you and
I'm
I
all
will
set.
talk a little bit about managing over at Evergreen. I just figure if you're available, you got a 5 o'clock practice, you can come early and paint.
Right.
You can stay after and groom the fields, both fields.
Mhm.
And I'll pay you, you know, an hour each time you do each of those. So, you know, like
Cool.
we'll just get you back on the payroll for that plus your coaching check at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I got time, but before you gave me the opportunity to coach, I was actually just going to message you guys and say that I was able to work any after school event now that wrestling's over. And I'm actually, along with my coaching paperwork, I'm turning in paperwork to substitute teach there at GRC or, you know, any middle school or high school with you guys at GRC. So I got
That's
time.
great.
It fits really well in the schedule. So
Yeah, get in touch with Sarah Seth over here for sure.
awesome.
Yep. Okay. Hey, I'll talk to you soon. I got to get to the next meeting.
Yep. Have a good one.
All right.
See you later.
See ya.
Yep.